be mortal.
Yes, we are mere mortalites. Welcome back. It is the 20th of April and it is Easter Sunday.
Oh yeah, it is.
This is the first one for April.
First one for April and in 3 weeks.
Yeah. So we haven't actually done a podcast, musings
maybe
episode.
even 4 weeks.
Maybe even 4 weeks.
Yeah.
No, we haven't done a musings or meandering. Karen's been flying the flag for the mere mortalites here.
Well, for the book reviews and for the
Book reviews, the mere mortals, mere Morpheus, of course.
We've had a gap for here, so apologies for those at home for the 2 week gap.
Correct. For those who will be tuning live, which we have, some on at the moment.
We see you there.
Who listen in afterwards, Thank you for, if you were wondering, where do we go? Well, we did talk about it a little bit pre it actually happening. And so, if you're a long-time listener, you know what's going on. But yes, there is a slightly new look if you're looking at the actual video as well. We're in a new location.
The solar panels of Brisbane in the background here.
Correct. I was actually trying to pull this wide down and up. I think that's like the limit. I think that's actually the limit of it to go down because there's no more on the top. So we'll see. We'll see what we can actually do. There used to be curtains here, but we moved the curtains away to another room. In any case, Mere Mortalites here at the Mere Mortals, we talk about effective philosophy, pretty deep conversations with a lighthearted touch. We got meanderings today. It is a more
I put it as a musings, but maybe I can no, we'll keep it meanderings and I'll just change it afterwards.
Okay. In any case, it's a little bit about, I guess, what's been going on as of late. There's a particular word, or there's two words, but there's one particular word that's come up in a lot of conversations as of late, which is equanimity. Okay. I'll help describe sort of what that is. But I think it'd be worth for the mere mortals at home, if you're listening, baseline, where are we up to at the moment? Basically, sort of mentioned it, finally moved home. I'm in a new location. So that obviously just takes up, if you've moved home, and goddamn do I know about it, because I've moved plenty of times
in the recent years. Yeah.
So it does take quite a bit of time to obviously do the move in terms of setting up. So moved 2 weeks ago, but the last 4 days, let's just say, have been proper days where it's actually unpacked. I'm able to walk around without kind of going, oh yeah, I've got to go do this, I've got to go do that. So it was kind of prime time to be able to do this particular podcast. I was also away last weekend down in Canberra to go see a good friend of ours. So lots of life has been lived as of late.
Oh yeah.
Plus besides keeping up with the usual work stuff. So that's been on my side of things.
Yeah.
I don't think for you it's really changed all that much.
No, so I went down, visited the family in my dad's side of the family in Sydney. So that was at the end of March. Yep. So that was 1 week where I was away. Since then, no, just it's funny how life, I guess, just fills in the gaps in some case. So my regular routine of going to yours for the Sundays was broken for like 3 weeks, and yeah, those Sundays just filled up. They filled up with stuff,
like just general things, just like training,
things, man. Like I don't feel like I've done anything extra. I have done a bit of extra research on like travel stuff, but certainly not like 10 hours worth.
Well, that's like, it's a challenging thing when people often say, if you reduce your phone usage or like your social media time from 3 hours a day down to 1 hour a day, and it's like, wow, imagine what you could do for those 2 hours. Default though is that you end up filling them up with just other random shit that you don't even realize.
I think the thing that I filled it up with was stuff that I wanted to do, but it was just, so for me, a bunch of it has been crypto related things, actually, NFTs.
Okay. So
I've just been looking at a lot of NFT related things, and actually spending time on chain, sending transactions, trying out new things, which has been really fun. I have enjoyed doing that. Okay. And that was stuff that I just didn't really have time for. So for example, there's a little strategy I'm thinking of doing, which involves two of the favorite family pastimes here at the Mere Mortals, which is gambling and arbitraging at the same time. Okay. So there is a case where you could use something like Polymarket and then a new chain like Abstract, which has new related things on it, like little gambling, prediction markets. gambling.
Gambling.
And you could do each way bets, like my brother used to do on the race horses or whatever. Doesn't really matter what it is. Do each way bets with a kind of you end up losing a tiny little bit of money from it, but in this case, you would potentially be getting some airdrop farming or something like that. So you could do these kind of things where it's like you're doing this stuff in the hopes of like a different type of payout. So it's fun. I wonder how much metrics of life is like this, where it's like people are looking at GDP numbers, or people are looking at import-export numbers, or people looking at whatever. And it's just people playing games like this where they're like, I can do this, I can do the opposite side over here, and somehow there's a clause in a contract or a externality unrelated to these two things where you can end up making money. And so I just wonder how much economic activity is complete and utter bullshit.
Oh, that'd be a lot.
And I think it would be a lot.
There'd be a lot. And even there'd be a lot that people think it isn't, but actually underlying is, where you actually think like, oh, I'm putting all these thoughts into it and we've got this predictive model that gives me that. But again, cut that all down, average it out, maybe run it against another system where you're not doing any of that, and you kind of get like similar, if not maybe slightly better. So it's like, was it really an improvement? It was really bullshit.
Here's another one. So with the VFriends, which we talked about, 2 months ago, with the VFriends cards and collecting of things, I bought a whole bunch of boxes, right? And Juan tried to.
I tried. I could not. Fuck you, Gary Vee.
Yeah.
Fuck. God damn it, man.
Unfortunately, Juan's economically worse off for that because the price of these boxes has skyrocketed.
Rocketed.
And I'm actually thinking like, potentially, they're getting shipped here to Australia, but I might sell it
back to the US.
Back to the US. And so it would just be like a whole bunch of like useless, wasted shipping.
Almost.
I mean, there's got to be so many things.
You can't expect it to be, making money straight from the get-go, but you could have been like, oh, look, just hold it in like a post box or something in the US and then resell it from that location as opposed to having to incur the fees. But who's to know? If obviously if it goes down for whatever reason, then you end up losing even more. But
but that's just some of the little fun things that have been side diversions.
NFT, so family-friendly stuff, gambling,
gambling and buying JPEGs. On
gambling and JPEGs for Karen. So that's been on his side. So look, that's kind of like where we've been. What does it look like? Well, unfortunately, me and Waterlines over the next couple of weeks at least, you will see us back into a general cadence. In fact, it'll be exactly...
You're going away next week.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. So next week, I'm going to be away, but I will commit to try and put out a particular episode for next week.
No, we'll do a monthly goals. That'll come out.
Sorry. Yes, correct. We'll do a monthly goals, which we'll do live shortly. We also, after in a couple of weeks, both myself and Karen are going to be away in some travels. Correct. So there's going to be a big chunk. We'll fit like 2 more episodes in, and then it's going to be free for all. Man. Yeah, and unlike I hate seeing this, unlike the Tom Billy Hughes and a few others out there who will replay any of the old stuff and bring it up. I just don't want to do that. I purposely, when I see replays like that, even if they're the most replayed, and everyone, I've seen a lot do it. Tim Ferriss does it, a few others. Man, I just don't like. I never really listen to it.
I've seen ones where they delay publishing by a month or more, and it's just out of date already. And even if it's even if it's meant to be like a timeless topic, it still feels like you're kind of getting gypped. It's like, oh man, this is like a month old.
It's old.
Like, this is stuff that was would have been on his thought. Because a lot of times I think when you tune into people, you are wanting to hear, oh shit, Juan's moved house, or Kyron's been doing this.
For sure. Yeah.
And so if you're getting it a month late, let alone like 2 or 3, then...
I think there's a big part, so going adjacent here, but there's a big part around the trend of AI, the trend of automation, where no matter... So we talked about this a couple of months ago, where... I think eventually there's going to be products where they can create your own stories or your own whatever, and things will be easy and you'll be able to, you wanting to follow it up. But even in myself now, I still want to follow the persona of someone that I'm listening to. And yes, the material I might be able to just get as easily through ChatGPT or some other form. but it's in like following that particular person saying it that is relevant, and you know where they're up to in life and a few other things, which, so I can see how even for ours, the more relevant it is in terms of the podcast that we're releasing, the better it is for people who are consuming it. I also notice that when I'm listening to Chris Williamson, he will often record 5 or 6, in a week, and he'll do that for 3 weeks straight, and he'll delay and release them. And sometimes you'll listen to a podcast and it'll be like, oh, it's in February and we're in April. Yeah. It's like, what the hell? It was, but it literally just got released a couple of days ago, but it is that late in its releasing schedule, I guess I'd say. So not super fantastic.
One thing I want to give us his pat on the back for myself and for Juan is I feel consistency. If we've recorded something, it gets released pretty quick. The only thing that would have maybe changed for that was when we were doing so many episodes. This is where I'm talking like 2 book reviews a week, a conversation, a Mere Mortals episode, another a Musings and a Meandering. So we're doing like
one a day.
That was when, scheduling wise, we might have had an episode, a conversation or 2 that was like 2 weeks or 3 weeks delayed max. But there was one of the crypto things I've been following recently was his Steady Lads podcast.
Steady Lads.
Which is taken from the Steady Lads Do Kwon quote. And it's just a bunch of guys who follow a lot of the news, and mostly it's for the memes. Like they've got really funny memes related to current events. And the recent episode a couple of days ago were like, we're going to stop doing it weekly. We're up to 92 weeks in a row. And kudos to them. 92 weeks in a row is really hard. Yep. But I'm also like, rookies, you gotta up those numbers. We're getting close to 500. And my motivation for, even though we will have, disturbances, especially whilst traveling, I'm 100% sure when we're both back here in August, we're just going to get back into the weekly schedule again, and it's not going to be an issue at all. So even though, we might not have an episode every single week, we'll have, 40 plus a year.
Oh, easily. And I think it's now, because I'm just thinking, if you've done, let's just say 10, 20 weeks, 10, 15 weeks in a row, if you took a couple of weeks off, I could see how getting back into it might be slightly more difficult, because the time you take away is 20% of the total time that you've been spending it. But now, for us at the Mere Mortals, we've been quite consistent, let's say above 90% consistency for 5+ years. And even if we take, a good chunk of time away, a month, that is just a tiny little drop, right? It's 1/60th of the time that we've spent actually doing it. Exactly. That there is very little effort to just get back to the same cadence. It's now very ingrained in us to do, for sure. So the word, there's 2 words, but I'll start with the first word that has been happening as of late, which it's been nice. It's not taking a step back from the podcast, but in that, not having it be a demand on my life, especially all the things that I've been doing, again, called them out, not having the demand of the podcast was really nice. And I wouldn't suggest that it was the fact that it wasn't there, but I came to find this equanimity, is it equanimous? No.
Equanimous.
Yeah, I don't know if that's actually a word.
I think you can.
I found equanimity. And there was this beautiful transcendence where it's probably because I was spending so much effort. There was so much eating glass type of events around trying to buy a new place, and how do we list the old place?
Hurricane at the same time.
Yeah, everything all at the same time. So we're still preparing a lot of the stuff for the wedding, all this sort of stuff.
Wedding, of course, yeah.
So like all that concentrated in one was stressful. There was just a lot of no downtime. It's one of the typical, you say, I'm busy. I'm always busy. There's always things to do. And really over the last 2 weeks, essentially since we moved in, and then plus a couple of days from unpacking and doing all of that, it sort of settled into this equanimity feeling where it's, and specifically, because there's another word that I'll say about it. So equanimity is a calm and balanced state of mind, especially in difficult situations. So that's that, especially in difficult situations. And I did find that where it's now not like the haven't taken off my foot off the pedal too much. You know, I'm still pursuing things with work, and I've talked about to you and a few other friends I've got this other business idea that's starting to really like bubble up.
Business idea.
You know, I'm still, you know, dad looking up to things. I'm even I've gone harder into my training and into running. So there's challenging states there, but I have this feeling now of it feels really balanced. Like all of these challenges that are coming up, I'm able to do and handle fairly easily. Again, it's not super easy because it's challenging. There's some challenge to it, but I'm taking it in my stride. So that has felt like fantastic. That has felt like really, really good. Now, the addition of the podcast, which we're doing right now, this is the first time I'm doing the podcast in a new place. It still feels easy. You know, there was still like lots of setup in a new place. We haven't run into too much issues just yet. We had a little bit of a power surge and whatnot, but you know, it's kind of like running fine, so that's good.
I mean, like we would take easily 20 minutes to set up at your old place. We did this one in 30, and you know, this is completely new room. So
correct, we weren't sure where we were like setting up. So hopefully it becomes a faster paced thing as well. But what you'll see is, and I guess how I'm describing it, the new place, maybe the less strain on the mind from having all these other things happening, which for sure that is a big thing. I think now I'm sitting in like, I feel there's this equanimity within me or on the way that I act in things. I would probably hazard a guess that I haven't felt that in a good 3 years. I reckon I'd say a good really? 3 years where it's this like easily crystal clear mind. Maybe there has been off times where I get into like a really, really solid state of mind and I'm thinking and I'm pursuing something and I'm really, really connected with what I'm doing. But over a day, there's some sort of challenge or grief or stress or something else that kind of takes me away. And I couldn't say that the day was full of equanimity. But now, the last couple of days, for sure, like I think I might have messaged you this, like literally from waking up in the morning to going to bed, it's like, wow, that was just like an unbelievably good day. Even though there was challenges and you still got into some debates about this or whatever else, at the end, there was a really quick return back to not just normal, but like a good high baseline. So, you know, I don't know what to put it to. I don't know if it's, you know, the new environment, more light, it's, you know, the lowering of all of those stressful moments, all that sort of stuff. I'm not entirely certain.
I'm kind of becoming a proponent of the idea of you having phases in your life, of being able to chunk it into distinct, you know, this is what I was doing here, this is what I was like, and then it's not like an immediate switch over, but you can then go like, okay, and then, you know, there was this period. So for me, you know, high school, very distinct period, university, distinct, although I was still say I was largely the same person there. Yep. Coming then out into like work. So a lot for me is based on location. Sure. I remember really well based on like, you know, this year I was in this place doing this thing around this time. Now, obviously I don't have the savant memory of going down to the individual day and hour, but I can largely recall like, oh yeah, I remember this is what I was like as a person back then. This is where I'd be spending my time, largely what I was doing things. And yeah, so I'd say, you know, coming from when I was at the end of my Brazil trip, so that was, you know, pretty hectic. So it was like 1 month in Brazil, 1 month back in Australia for when mum passed, couple of months, another month in Brazil, then in the US, then in Brazil again. And right towards the end of that, when I was starting to feel homesick, I missed hanging out with you, hanging out with, you know, other friends, hanging out with my brother, my dad. All of that time, I came into this kind of zen-like, excited state of like, I'd say equanimity was a decent word for it, which was very peaceful. It's like, okay, you know, this era of my life is over, the era of you know, mum being sick. And so now it's, you know, what's the next one going to be and what can I make of it? Like how I was, you know, young, naive and hopeful, like, oh my God, you know, life's going to be, you know, so amazing. I was kind of, it was almost like when you're motivated, but I also know myself and know, okay, I'm not going to stay this motivated in 3 or 4 months time. I'm probably going to,
it's going to change again.
Just be like doing my regular thing. So, enjoy those moments where it does feel really nice and calm, because certainly for me, it doesn't stay like this.
Correct.
The idea of nirvana, of finding the Buddha under the Bodhi tree, he does all of his work and then he finds enlightenment, and then it's just from then on out, it's, even if he goes through tough times, he's still got this inner peace. I personally have not found that in any portion of my life.
Well, and this comes to the other portion, and I think this is more the topic I wanted to discuss as our, I guess, musings for today, which was last couple of days, I did feel that equanimity, that state of being where I'm feeling peaceful, I'm feeling it mindful, I'm feeling present. There wasn't a lot of future focused or past sort of reflections. However, I did completely understand that this too shall pass, in that this will settle into the new baseline at some point or other, and it's going to become, something else will come up where it's a little inconvenience, and then that will become the new thorn, where right now everything's real shiny, everything's working well. So that's going to happen. And then I saw this other word that a guy, Anthony, who I've had on the podcast, posted up, and it made me question that very same thing that you're saying. Have you heard of ataraxia? I had not. I'll spell it for people at home. Ataraxia. So
I feel like I've heard it, but I wouldn't be able to describe.
Yeah, this is probably one of those things
like
that
a Tim Ferriss word.
I've heard people say it before, and I'll just forget it after a month. This is probably going to be the same, and there's a reason why you forget it. Because for me, I don't know if I truly believe this is possible. Same thing with the Buddha. Ataraxia, a state of serene calmness and freedom from emotional disturbance or anxiety. So yes, it's serene calmness, freedom, but it's freedom from emotional disturbance. And part of me thinks, was that even a human? Like, what do you mean complete freedom from emotional disturbance? I don't know. I don't even know if I want that. Because to me, it sort of reads out as you're wanting to be not disturbed by sadness or anger, but also not by happiness and joy. And I gotta go, I think it's not bullshit. You might aim for that, but I don't want to aim for that. That seems like a little bit of an inconvenience path. It feels like you're not tuned into the world, connected. Again, you saw my daughter today just like running around. It's like, I'm like, you know what? I want to be like emotionally connected to that sort of state. I don't want to be neutral or pulled away. No, I want to be connected into the world. And with that will come and will bring the thorn on the side, and it will bring the inconvenience beyond the baseline. That is going to be annoying. Yeah. But the benefits or the position that I can put myself in will be more helpful, and I'll prefer to have all those joys come with the inconveniences that it brings. So it kind of makes it. Okay, I'll plant you the question. Say you have equanimity. We're not even in the middle. Like equanimity is like off down here and like really, really good. Then you've got this ataraxia. It's like all the way at the end, right at the extreme. Is it worth trying to go beyond equanimity towards even closer to that ataraxia? Do you think it would be helpful for you to achieve that? Is it even helpful to aim for equanimity in what you've seen and experienced in life?
I think for myself, no, but I've read a fair few Buddhist books, and there are a certain category of people who I think no matter what, their experience of life is so emotionally disturbing that they're chasing. And I'm always kind of thinking of that was a Tim Ferriss type word, ataraxia. And I think of people like him where he can have all of the success. We're playing his fucking card game just before. Yep. Then that's just a small venture on his part, and he always seems to be the type where I'd really like to spend just 10 hours with him to see what he's like, because when he's on the podcast, calm, collected, very thoughtful type individual. But the things that he says about himself, of dealing with intense anger, of the depressions, the ups and downs, you don't see that side of him on the public facing aspect. And so I think people like him, is that end goal of the ataraxia actually possible? I think it is. I think you could probably meditate yourself into a state of kind of numbness in a way. I imagine that there's people out there who have done that. Probably some people in jail, because what else are you going to do in jail? certainly some Buddhist monks seem to have something that will appear like that. Now, is that a good thing? Because then you can't feel the joy. You know, I don't want that. I want to be able to do what we were talking about just beforehand, where you can put a $2 bet on a ridiculous multi, so that when you watch something you already enjoy, in Juan's case F1, and then be like hoping that this ridiculous odds thing that is almost certainly not going to happen, but if it does happen, holy shit, that's going to be fucking awesome. I want to feel that, and yeah, the aspect of life is, I guess, trying to what would you say, like maximize or at least remember the really good stuff. I'm reading a book at the moment on it's called A Primer for Forgetting. It's by Lewis Hyde, and he's the guy who wrote Common as Air, which was all about IP law, copyright, and things like this. And he's really, really good writer. His writing style I really enjoy, and he's making the case at the moment of why forgetfulness and forgetting is actually a good thing. And you can look at some aspects of history, like the Spartans, when there was this tyrants, the 30 tyrants took over. They're basically, sorry, not Sparta, Athens. Athens had these 30 tyrants take over their democracy, and they were stealing people's stuff. They were doing all of these injustices to people, like killing a husband and then not letting him be buried properly, stealing the stuff like the gold earrings from his wife and things like this. And eventually they got overthrown, but then it's like, okay, them and their friends still constitute a large portion of Athens, because Athens was like 100,000 people or something at the time. It was probably really, really small. What do we do? How do we get over this? How do we integrate them back into culture? Because if we just have continual vengeance of, okay, well, these tyrants, his brother did this to my sister-in-law, you're just going to have continual violence. And so he was saying, they had this kind of deal of, okay, we have to forget all of the past sins and just get on with our lives. And then he's making other cases of why you'd want to forget certain memories of your life or things like this. And I'm like, oh yeah, what if a good life is actually one where you have just as much good, just as much bad, but you just forget
all of
the
bad.
most,
or like the most terrible.
Well, yeah, perhaps the most terrible, or perhaps the least useful stuff. Certainly you can learn a lot through having a bad moment of, you behave really badly, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I should probably remember that so I don't do that again. But, if you got into a random car crash and suffered punctured lung for a year, is it really helpful remembering that? Not
Probably
so much.
not. No, you gotta forget that.
I thought that was a kind of cool concept where if you had the option, it sounds like you probably don't want to try and numb yourself to everything, but if you had the option to
selectively forget.
Yeah, would you try and go down this route? Say it was a mental path of mental memories. He talks about memory palaces and things like that as well. So imagine you could do a memory palace technique, but instead of remembering,
like forgetting,
it's forgetting.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. Would you do that if you?
I don't know if I would. No, I don't know. But then again, I probably haven't looked into the concept of like forgetfulness in itself that deeply. So maybe you would. I don't know if I can I have to really think through it.
Because then there's one memory I have is probably the closest I've come to dying in a certain aspect, which was I was driving from Brisbane to Emerald, inland Queensland. So I was on single lane roads each way, passing by B doubles, which for those who don't know are just really long trucks transporting grain or whatever. And I overtook one on this curve, and I really shouldn't have. And then I'm going 140 Ks an hour trying to overtake this thing that's fucking like 20, 30 meters long, however long it is. And I'm just realizing if a car is coming the opposite way, I'm so dead. I'm dying. That person's probably dying, and I think back at that, and every time I do, it's just like, it's that shiver of, man, am I lucky to be here? what if I had died? The
would you
horror.
would you wish you would forget that?
See, maybe because it certainly for that particular instance, I will not do that again. But I'm sure I'll do something equally stupid while driving, which is not related to that. So is that particular thing going to help me? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
and it certainly causes me enough grief when I remember.
When you think about it.
Telling it now is not so bad, but it's when it comes up in my mind when I'm just, about to go to sleep or just another random thing happens. It's just
You're like, oh, damn. Yeah, because I've had like something similar to that. And because as you were saying that story, I go, yeah, if I was to forget that, then you kind of lose whatever learning that was embedded in that, unless you could somehow magically keep the learning, but
what
forget the actual.
What'd you do?
Very, very similar. I think we were coming back from somewhere out west in Brizzy. We were camping and we were going around. It was Hinsdam, I'm pretty sure it was. And
is this the kangaroo? Like you hit a
kangaroo? Correct. Yeah. No, it wasn't kangaroo that I hit, but I was going around. I went around a long truck.
One, yeah.
And this particular truck was going fairly slow. There was enough space to kind of get out of the way. I was like, I'll just go around it. And at that exact point, the road sort of dropped down and the truck picked up speed. So that meant I had to go around this truck even faster. And then for whatever reason, either I can't remember if I just didn't know that the turn was coming up or that's where the dam was. But the dam, we had to turn left basically at the end of this road, and the road would have been maybe less than a kilometer. And so it was just as fast as you could around this truck, get back in front, and then hit the brakes hard to be able to like basically drift around the corner to get into the dam. And I still think about that. I don't think, see, and this is the interesting thing, I don't really think about that and go like, oh my God, what could have happened? I more think about it in the sense of, damn, I'm in those situations, I'm going to know not to do that. So I remember the learning. I don't necessarily remember it for
so that's one you
like
don't
the terrible
to,
for it. So,
sure.
So that's why I'm like, I don't know if I'd forget that. And then I was trying to think of like really terrible moments, I guess, that technically should be terrible. And I'm a weird human, folks. Me and more lights, I'm a weird human. So you might say, I wasn't technically bullied. I was never bullied. I can probably say hand on heart I wasn't bullied. At least that I knew, right? But again, when I was young, I didn't speak English when we were here in Australia. And so I was like the loner. I was very much the loner, just sort of sitting off to the side, watching people, I remember, play cricket and I didn't even know what cricket was. I was like, what are they doing? So they were playing cricket. They were playing tennis. I wasn't talking to anybody. And you would think, man, that would be a really sad childhood and maybe all these things. Nah. No way. I was just like, oh, cool. That's what it is. And so for a long time, I remember, like I've had this conversation with a couple of people, and there's, again, kind of to the side, there's a concept of confidence, or the concept of, everyone would recognize this, not believing in themselves that well, or just not being confident about a particular thing. And don't get me wrong, I do feel that sometimes. I certainly do. Usually when I feel that is when I finish a contract, let's just say for work for whatever reason, and I've got to find a new contract. In that little gap of space, always comes up in my mind like, is it going to be really hard? Am I not going to have the relevant skills, qualifications? I need to get another one. And every time I find something and it's like, why did I worry about it? So that does come up for me. So I'm not going to say it's never. But besides that, and maybe a few other, I don't feel that feeling that people when they try to describe I don't have the confidence to do this, or
like imposter syndrome. That's one I've never understood.
Well, so maybe something like that for imposter syndrome. I have that for the concept of confidence in a lot of times. Kind of like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't. That doesn't equate with me, and I think there's part of how I just grew up as being a kid, and the fact that I had to be very observant. I actually found out this. There's another tidbit in Modern Lights at Home. I found out myself because I went, why do I find myself being good at, and this all came with this equanimity state, right? Which I think is what it's, you'll see what my final sort of call out on this is, but like, I think it's good to get equanimity at places in life, because one of these like Crystal's day, I was just like chilling out, having a mimosa midday type of days.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, just thinking to myself, like, you know what? I think the reason I'm really good at speaking to people or just being confident to engage with different types of individuals for whatever reason was built up around that time when I couldn't speak English. And why? Because I just sat there and watched everyone do everything. And I didn't talk. So it would have been maybe a good 2 years where I just watched humans without talking and just sitting back and listening. And I reckon the bit that I picked up the most was how to be a chameleon. That's what I picked up. And I think that's what I discovered about myself. And what I mean by that, as I kept on growing up, whether I went into a islander group to do gym or have conversations with people at school, go into the workplace, go and talk to executives, go talk to whoever, I tend to be like a chameleon and I can shift my way of acting or interacting very similar to whatever group it is that I'm doing with. I noticed that was very something I didn't it was very unconsciously I was doing that, and now I see that very consciously. And if I let it go, again, I'm not actively being oh, I've got to act like this, but I will pick myself doing that and go, okay, yeah, I see that, and I think it came from that sort of position. But again,
that's really cool.
Being in equanimity, I think, allows you to think some of these thoughts. But yeah, I see that. I kind of going to go, I was in a group where we didn't really have that many islanders, in our school, and I didn't hang out with them that much. But then somehow after school and in particular days, I would go and work out with islanders and I would speak like them and I'd be interacting with them and I'd just be like one of them. So it was very quick and it wasn't me, trying to do something about it. I think it was just learning and observing with people. But equanimity and ataraxia. So when I saw that, one of the other things that came to mind was, I think looking at that ataraxia, or maybe that Buddhist's view of just complete, bliss, is challenging to 99.9% of all humans. I don't think it is a wise thing to aim for. Why? I pair it up with almost like aiming for you want to be the richest person on earth. That's kind of how I equate it. Why? Because one, it's so supremely rare that that's going to happen. When you aim for something like that, it then also becomes really easy for something else to usurp it for whatever reason. So if you say I've reached ataraxia, there's probably something else that will come up of billions of things that all of a sudden, oh no, actually it isn't because of these little things. And then you have to pursue it one more. And it just becomes such an extreme that seems nebulous to quantify or qualify, that it's not really even a goal. That doesn't sound to me like a goal that's actually prosperous to aim for. Even if it's I want to reach that. No, because that's like saying I want to become the richest person on earth. That's not the most well-informed, perhaps, intent of a goal. I think that would be a challenging thing. However, the equanimity piece, even then, I wouldn't, at least personally, I don't think it would be a great thing for me to say, I want to have this equanimity forever, all the time in my life, because I know full well that, again, something's going to happen, thought on my side, issue, argument, something's going to work, plane's going to land late, whatever. And I'm going to be frustrated, I'm going to get annoyed, and I will be slightly more annoyed if I then go to myself I didn't reach equanimity today because of this bloody thing. So, sure, my natural reaction might be well, I'll just take it away. No more flights anymore, no more this. And I also think that's an incorrect experience of life. What I kind of landed on was last couple of days, love this equanimity feeling. It just feel really at peace. And a lot of the notes that I've been taking is really, really been wonderful. I know this is going to end at some particular point. That's totally fine. But what I want to do is have all of the tools and the tricks and the tips that you need to live the arduous life that is the usual. That's the usual. Have all your tips and tricks and whatever else happens upon it, where you have to fuck, I've got to get this done by 9 p.m. Or, oh shit, this is a really challenging run and I've got to get into it and whatnot. Or a whole day of something else comes up and you need to just have the anti-fragility, have the right confidence, have the right experience, whatever, to do it. And then when you've got these equanimity type of days, weeks, months, whatever, then, and specifically then, just have the skill set of being able to be okay, I can be present. I can be present. I can be there. I can actually enjoy it with the full knowledge that it will again end. And so then you can be forever actually present through those actual times. I think that way of looking at it, much better as a mere mortal. And I think moving forward, I'm going to less buy the view or the sale that might be put up by really strong views towards, you can be live a full equanimity or full life without any stresses and whatnot, I just go, yeah, I don't want that. Yeah, even if you are selling and can achieve it, I go, yeah, but it's not for me. There's some level of stress, or some level of like arduous tasks that you want to do, because it's kind of like what you were talking about, forgetting. Unless you're pushing some boundaries, then you're not going to be really like learning or experiencing much of life, and it kind of becomes pretty boring conversation to have.
I think it's about caring as well. So if I look at myself, most people would probably say like I'm a calm individual, and that's stuff I've heard described about me before. And I'm like, yeah, you know what, that's correct. And in a way, I'm very non-reactive as well. So if something happens, like I'm not immediately like, Juan, I would say, is a reactive.
More reactive, correct.
Like if something happens, it's going to be like, all right, we'll do this, and you also move on from things a lot quicker. We'll talk about like a new website at some point, but I remember you were talking about the blog, and then my brother was doing some stuff and he couldn't make it work, and I was like, it's all right, I'll tell Juan. He'll ask about the blog. I'll say, nah, couldn't do it, and he'll just move on instantly. Yep. And that is exactly what happened. But the difference, I guess, between equanimity and non-reactive as well is, have I found equanimity if someone's talking about politics and I'm, giving off these peaceful, like, I don't really, I don't know, I don't particularly care type vibes. Is that equanimity? No, I just don't give a shit.
Just give a shit, yeah.
And
true.
I think that can be a thing where it's could be slightly confusing, and that could also be a way of finding equanimity is, and I would argue a wrong way, is by, okay, let's say I deeply care about finding a partner in life or something like this, but I'm struggling with that. I'm not reaching what I want. Okay, I'll just convince myself that it actually doesn't matter to me, and therefore I'll be calm, sure. But then you're missing out on a lot of what life has to offer. Case in point, at the gym yesterday, there was a girl. She was giving me some eyes. I kind of like looked at her a little bit as well.
Yep.
We didn't cross paths in our actual training, and she eventually went up on the treadmills, stair climbers. I finished my session, and I was like, okay, well, now's the time to, if you want to go talk to her, like, now's the time to do it. And I was feeling rather peaceful in myself. I'm like, okay, well, how could I do this? I can go up behind her and ask her a question related to something that she was doing, which I have done before. And I remember the girl afterwards, we got along fine now. And I was, this is a different one. Exact same scenario, right? And she was just like, she actually felt bad because she was like, oh, you were chatting with me, but I was like literally 2 meters higher than you on this treadmill and talking down at you, sort of deal. And I was like, yeah, well, it's my fault for approaching you like that. So I was like, okay, well, what I could do is just get up on the one next to her and then strike up a conversation. Once again, it would have to be very direct because there is 6 other free ones. Yeah. She's right on the end, so it would be very obvious. It's
kind of like going to the next to the urinal of the other guy.
Yeah, exactly. Striking, holding his dick for him. I'm here to help you out. And I didn't end up doing it. I chickened out. Okay. And as I'm walking out, as I'm then in the car ride, I'm kind of like beating myself up a little bit because it's like, Kyron, these are the type of opportunities that you want, and you probably should. The more chances you have at bat, she could have been the love of your life, but you won't know now because you never chatted with her. And I said to myself, like, okay, well, I can find a way of playing this off, of being like, this one doesn't really matter. It would have been an awkward situation no matter what. You would have had to, even if you were the most confident ever, I would have had to have been a very different person, like have extreme confidence to be able to go up and do that. Which is not a default state of mine. And I was thinking like, okay, well, you can find a way of getting rid of this in a sense of not feeling bad, of just being like, think about something else, or, trying to find equanimity in this situation. You're beating yourself up. But I think it's actually like, okay, it's kind of good that you're feeling bad now because, this is a thing where you do want to improve on. You do want to, be able to chat with people, basically at any time. You do want to get over these fears of social awkwardness or a weird situation that isn't necessarily real. Sometimes it can be real, but I could have chatted with her and she could have been cool with it and actually wanted to. She probably did because we were trading glances in the gym. So there's the aspect of wanting the bad stuff to be able to improve upon. And so like this is where the monthly goals come in. This is where doing hard stuff, even though it's painful and here, another example, I found out a girl I was chatting with already was dating someone, but her friend was like, well, she's dating this guy, but I don't really know if they're a thing. I don't know, whatever. And I said, you know what, next time I see her, I'll ask her out anyway, even though I already have this information that it's probably not going to go well. Yep. And sure, I did it, and she rejected me and said, oh, I'm already dating this guy. And I was like, okay, cool. And that's just fine. Nothing, the world didn't end. I didn't, she didn't like, how dare you spit on me, slap me,
boot in the fucking head, like
none of all the stupid shit that goes through your head happened. So or
you just get pointed out by like the gym and just like shame.
Yeah, no, none of that happened. So these are the type of things where if you're chasing equanimity, if you're thinking about this subject, I don't think it's certainly not for myself, and probably I would say for most people, is a thing to run towards. I would suggest using everyone loves good feelings, so good feelings are good, and it's only if you're becoming addicted to sex and you're sleeping with all the wrong people and that sort of stuff where chasing good is bad. But I would certainly be more of the opinion that you want to feel things, and the equanimity is not feeling things. It's about how to respond to them afterwards or interpret them afterwards. And look, at times you're not going to get it right. You're going to get angry. You're going to be annoyed because your dog comes up to you when you're trying to work on something and you shoo him away when you should actually just play with him for a minute or something. So yeah, that was kind of my general thoughts on equanimity. What was your sum up?
I guess sum up for me, I was going to say, for all mere mortals, you go through life, and I think we understand life, especially when it comes to the tail end of it. And you might think back at the experiences or the things that you actually end up doing, and we went to visit this or we did that. But if you boil it away, if you want to look at it the absolutes, it's more that you're experiencing whatever happens to some sort of emotion. So chemically, that's resulting in some sort of emotions or something that you feel like your brain thinks is an emotion, and it might be happiness, it's sadness, it's joy, surprise. When I hear that word of emotional sort of separation and feel this stillness and no stress, I then go, yeah, but it's all of those things that then allow for what you then denote as a human's experience. That's you want to, whether it's bad or good, but without that emotional connection, I don't know if you can actually say you had a good experience. It was just an experience because it's not tainted with humanity through it. It's just something's happened. So that's why it kind of moves me away. And I think the effective philosophy for me is don't chase numbness or no feeling. Chase the ability to be present when that equanimity, when the day feels it with equanimity, or it feels like you're at peace with all the stress going on. Find the skill sets to be able to be in it, to be present, and then fully expect that you're going to get back into the fray and tool yourself up with the right stuff so you can just get into it and go, cool, I'll be back here at some point, and when I get back here, I'll enjoy it once again.
Sure.
Something to that effect.
Sounds pretty good.
I think me and Mortals will leave it there. I want to bring up just the Boostagram Lounge as well. We didn't do it at the middle, but I'll do it here at the end. Now, you are able to support us through a value for value model. That is an ability for you to send through some Boostagrams directly to us here at the Me and Mortals podcast. I don't
think there was any. You can do that on a modern podcasting app. Probably the best one to go to at the moment is Fountain. That's certainly the easiest. If you're a more advanced user, try out something like True Fans, Podcast Guru, Podverse, Castomatic, Curocaster. It's a whole bunch of apps where you can do this. Look, we've been away. We've missed a whole bunch. We've been inconsistent. And so I feel that this is what happens when you do that.
True.
So probably more of that to come in the next couple of months. But we very much do appreciate support. We even forgot to do Boostagrams in the middle of the episode like we normally do. So
yeah. Was there any other comments as well that we wanted to
No, I
tackle?
did see Cole coming up live. I did see Pat coming up live and joining us. So very much thank you for the two of them. Hopefully our dulcet tones lulled Cole to sleep because I know he was looking for that.
Correct.
And live episodes. We will be doing them live, but timing wise over the next couple of weeks, and especially whilst we're both traveling. So from mid-May for me, late May for Juan, through to July sometime is going to be very haphazard.
Yeah, for sure.
Very haphazard.
For sure.
So letting you know that up front.
Yeah, look, there's going to be something.
But you will get some great stuff. Like there's going to be a live podcast coming from Greece.
Yeah, there'll be a
probably be a live podcast coming from Hosky headquarters in Poland.
It'll be less content, but I do dare say that the quality or the type of engagement of conversation is going to be very ridiculous.
Oh, so yeah, they're going to be episodes, non-normal episodes. Yeah. Let's put them that way. Yeah.
Pretty special episodes.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, we'll leave it there. Emotionless. Thank you very much. I did see there's more than a handful of people listening live, so I do appreciate that.
Thank you, everyone, for those who aren't writing their name in the chat. We would love if you do, but
correct.
Thank you very much for joining. The monthly goals that's coming up. This is going to be a pre-recorded one, so we'll be doing that live right now after this, but it'll be coming out a week later.
Correct.
As Juan is going to be gallivanting about next weekend.
Correct. Well. Yeah, out on the mountain somewhere. More lights. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much for tuning in. One out.
Going out. Bye.
Good. Bye.